Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda as in our packet and as sitting on the table here we got tonight. Could I have a motion to approve that agenda?
Second.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Next item on the agenda is any audience comments or items that are on the agenda. Given the gentleman that walked in, I'm assuming he's a presenter. And so do not see any audience for item 4. Item 5 on the agenda is approval of the commission meeting minutes for September 17th, 2018. Could I have a motion for that? And a second?
Second.
And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And anyone abstain? Item 6 on the agenda is consider a motion to recommend to council approval for preliminary plat for Big Creek Valley. And do you have any presentation on that? Or
I can kind of touch base on it real quick. If you recall, this plat was actually last approved, I want to say, in 2014. And so it's very, what you see before you now is very, very similar. Really, the main things that's happened since then is, first of all, this developer is planning to acquire the property from Knapp Properties. So rather than having Knapp develop themselves, they're selling it to somebody else. The plan remains very, very similar to what it was before. The big difference is it's going to 65 lots instead of 6. So there are 5 additional single-family lots. I guess the other things that are different is the sanitary sewer for Whitetail Ridge. This developer had extended the sanitary sewer, made a connection at the north end there, which doesn't really serve the plat. The sanitary sewer was extended by Knapp Properties to from the TCI lift station, kind of up the hill so that Big Creek State Park can connect. So there's an existing sanitary sewer that's kind of generally along the alignment of the street. And then Whitetail Ridge's developer, Jared Ruckel, extended the water main from the lift station up the hill along the street. We're up toward Hug Drive. So there is an existing 12-inch water main there. So some of the service lines were installed when the sanitary sewer went in. That information is provided to the developer, since that was Knapp Properties. We have forwarded that to Whitetail Ridge's developer, which is Shell Battery. Our comments have been addressed, except for just a couple minor things, and we'll make sure those that relate really to labeling of easements and things like that. So nothing real serious. They are, as the last plat was, they are proposing to have the lot. There are 2 outlots that are in the floodplain that will be tied to the adjacent lots. They're at the end of what was Lot B. That's an older plan because that was street on the end of Timber Valley Circle. And you will see at the end of Timber Valley Circle, there is kind of an odd-shaped little piece that's left out there. That is where that TCI lift station was constructed. That property was deeded to the city already. So we have asked that during construction that access be maintained to that lift station at all times. So they're going to have to figure out a kind of a phasing plan there, but the city needs to be able to get down to that lift station and maintain it because it is active. Both Whitetail Ridge and the state park are using that facility at this point in time. They do need to obtain some easements from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for the 2 storm sewer outlet pipes that extend into the Corps' easement down there, because it actually encroaches into their easement. I think that process was started by Knapp. I'm not sure if they got it completed yet or not. And whatever's not done, they'll have to finish up before they can construct those items. And they'll also need to obtain easements from the golf course because the cart path does cross the street. So they'll need to work on that, and then there will be some grading and that kind of thing there too. So they will need to work with the golf course to get for the most part, temporary easements there. There is maybe a little bit of a proposed sanitary sewer easement they need to get to. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Kathleen, I just had a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
You had mentioned a few of the lots are floodplain.
Yeah.
I had a hard time finding all the lines names on here, so many lines, like, which lots are they?
That's actually, the lots where it encroaches is down by the lift station, so it'd be 47 and 48. And on the back of that, we'd ask them to label the outlots that they have, they'll put an outlot X and Y on there before it goes to council. So the back part of those lots is where it kind of encroaches a little bit. The lift station, it was actually encroaching on the lift station lot a little bit as well. The lift station was elevated so that it's well. So the buildable part of the lots, and or actually the numbered lot, entire lot would be out of the floodplain. We did ask the developer, you guys had mentioned at one point you'd like to see the buildable areas, so that's what you'll see on those, the cross hatching represents the buildable areas. Once you take out the setbacks and whatever easements there might be on the particular lot. They're all large lots.
Okay. Thank you.
Kathleen, as a follow-up to that, the elevation of is it the 100 foot you're talking about?
Yep.
With basements be below?
No. Now that the city is we've been requiring this anyway, but the city is a member of FEMA, so the basements will be 1 foot above 100-year floodplain elevation at a minimum. They've indicated that in terms of their grading plan. On the construction drawings, we'll look at that a lot more closely. They will have to put an MOE, which is a minimum, an MBE, minimum basement elevation, on an engineering exhibit that's attached to the final plat, so that anybody getting a building permit knows what that elevation is. They will also have to do an elevation certificate, meaning they'll have to have a surveyor come in and survey that elevation to certify that in fact it is at that elevation. There will also be some MBEs, MOEs, minimum opening elevations, around the pond, because they're not, so the basement could be lower, but those are not in the FEMA floodplain. So the opening, so if they have a walkout basement, it would be equivalent to the basement, but if they just had like lookouts or window wells or something, it's whatever minimum opening elevation is there.
Thanks.
And where's the proposed pond?
The pond is, okay, kind of looking at this overview. It's right in here.
Okay.
It's actually kind of almost a double pond, if you will. There's kind of a smaller pond here, then there's almost a berm behind at the back end of Oak Valley Circle, and then the large part of the pond is here. But it is a wet bottom pond, so I mean it will always have water in it. It's in an outlot that'll be owned by the homeowners association and maintained by the homeowners association.
Now, the other one had a looped street that was taken out. Are these the two? Let's see. You said it was replaced by 2 cul-de-sacs. Are these the 2 that replaced Loop Street?
The loop street, the loop street was on the original.
Right.
It was actually on, not even on a preliminary plat. It was on the PUD master plan.
Okay.
That was, and it had a loop street, and if I recall correctly, it looped here.
Right. Yeah. So that's just okay.
Yeah, but the preliminary plat that was approved in 2014 eliminated that and had the pond. So that part really hasn't changed. It's really just that makes a few of the lots just a little bit thinner to get 65 lots instead of 60. That's really the difference between this plan and the last one.
Right.
So is the plan, are they, without trying to figure out the elevation here, are they building this land up?
I
Or is it
haven't
gonna be its
myself
current
looked.
grade?
My understanding, and I apologize, I didn't look at it in the detail, but I believe what they're doing is using the part of the reason, at least, and this is going back to the original one, that they wanted to dig the ponds partly to get some dirt to help fill out the other areas. But
For the minutes, could you state your name?
Jared Ruckle, 1425 Northwest Hug Drive, Polk City. Yeah, just to answer your question, that's why the loop concept didn't work originally, is because they had to build that all up to get above the floodplain. So then it's about a 10-acre pond that they're digging out of that 45-acre plat. So dig the dirt out of the pond. It's about 100,000 yards of dirt. And then it builds up basically where the road is, anywhere from 6 to 10 feet. And then that's where I'll walk out the lots come from.
So currently, there's currently standing water here. Is that on like lots 6 through 20.
That's, most of the standing water is right when you come down into that. And that is partially because of the berm that's built up there, but then that's the area that's up about 12.
So that's where, okay. I just want to make
So
sure I was
the
clear.
road
where
builds
that
it up
was.
there, and then the lots will slope off the sides.
Yeah, the water main was put in anticipation of the road, so
Yep.
there was actually a berm placed over, so there's enough cover that the water main wouldn't freeze, but probably wasn't maybe the best thing for drainage.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from this year. It's just been so wet. There's water on both sides of it, so there's just
Yeah.
it's just wet.
Is there like an access easement for maintenance to the ponds or for cleaning or?
Yeah, we have asked them to show an access easement, and it is not, forgive me if, one of our comments on the easement email was that there be an access easement between, right here, between lots 40 and 41, so that it'll kind of be at the end of Oak Valley Circle.
You'll have that as an access.
Yeah, that will be an access, and then there is a 10-foot lake maintenance easement, and we're gonna review that again in more detail on the construction drawings in relationship to the pond to make sure we've got 10 foot that is a kind of a flat area around the pond that's above the 100-year flood elevation. So, that easement could be tweaked a little bit through the detailed design, but the plan shows the intent for that.
Now, another question. In your review, you say that over this lot 61, 62 allow driveway access to Hug Drive. And do we need to do that do we need to deal with that as a separate item from?
Not necessarily. I mean, we had, because typically what we do is we ask for driveways to be on the side streets only. In this case, I'm not overly concerned because ultimately Hug Drive is going to be, it's not going to be the collector that it, originally was going to be in that location. So, I don't know that it's as critical. We're going to look at it more closely when they get to fine tuning the driveway, because the concern is just that the drive coming in is fairly steep. Depending on how the construction drawings shake out, because right now they're thinking that the slope could be around 8%, which is pretty steep. If it winds up being like that steep, it might be better to have it. Yeah. And it may, like I said, because we need to, what's not been fine tuned is obviously they've got the cart path that's going to be crossing, and that'll be probably at a 1.5% cross slope. Going to have to even that out so that we don't have, so we're going to have to have vertical curves coming in and out of that. So that may make it even a touch steeper than indicated. It'll still be well within SUDAS requirements, because you can go up to 12%. Not desirable, but you can go that steep. But we'll also want to make sure that they've got a relatively level platform at Hug Drive, so that cars, when they're approaching that intersection, have good visibility. So that you're not at a little angle when you're sitting at the stop sign there.
Fire department reviewed
Right.
this? Fire department looked at this, or
Pardon me?
fire department reviewed all this? I'm sure they did last.
They
time.
did the last time. I don't know that we had them ran it back through because the street in configuration, they've got hydrant coverage per Polk City Code, which is 250 foot radius. I think even SUDAS allows 300, but your fire code is 250, so it's a little tighter, and they need it for 250. So there's a couple lots, I think, where maybe the back part of the lot, it's a lot, I think. Lot 28, no, I'm sorry, 20 and 21, you'll see that the buildable area there is clipped just a little bit because of the hydrant coverage, which doesn't affect accessory structures. Just obviously the house can't be back there, which probably is never going to be an intent anyway. So, yeah, 51, yeah. So.
And what's the intent of transitioning the street down there from 31 to 26? Just
That was something that was agreed to originally with the PUD master plan, in order for them to have even with the loop street, that they had that transition. So that's just been maintained all throughout. The idea is that you'd have emergency access if you had parking on one side of the street. You have more of a wider, clear area for cars to pass if there was cars parked and you need to get a fire truck in.
Daphne, is there any concern about the cart path crossing over River Valley Drive that close to the intersection? Have we done that or anywhere, or?
Yeah, I mean, they'll probably have to have some kind of a stop, one of the
Yeah,
small
stop
stop signs on the cart path. The biggest concern would be just making sure that the street grades get designed correctly. I mean, that's going to take a little bit of, it'll take some work to do in terms of getting that designed so that it has a smooth ride on the street while still not being too steep and having too much of a cross slope for the cart path.
I just didn't know it was that close to the intersection. If it was somebody whip around that corner coming in, and,
Yeah, on Traditions, it's right on a sharp curve. It's a little
right, a little tough.
tricky
That
sometimes.
was my only. And I don't know the path well enough to know if there's access for both sides, or does it goes up to Green, whatever, on top of the hill at 3.
Yeah.
If that isn't.
It looks like it goes from 2 to 3. I don't know the cars either.
Kind of access through. I just didn't know if there was a downhill a little bit was better, or if it's. You're not concerned with it from an engineering perspective or traffic.
They're gonna. I mean, we'll look at it. I don't. There's not been any concern raised before about that. But
Okay.
it's possible that there'll be some finessing with it where, in terms of where it crosses as their profile of the street. Because I mean, if you look at kind of the way they've got it now, it almost looks like it doesn't. It almost looks like it's curving on the street, and it'll go straight across.
Perpendicular, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Oh,
Any other questions or comments? If not, would entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve preliminary plat review for Big Creek Valley dated October 11th pursuant to the recommendation 1, 2, and 3.
And any second to that?
Second.
Can I ask that you include all the? Or I'm sorry, what you're doing. Never mind. I was looking at the comments. I want to make sure you included all 6 comments.
And roll call, please.
Vogel,
Yes.
Sires,
Yes.
Dietz,
Yes.
Triplet,
Yeah.
Olfest,
yes.
Hinkins,
Yes.
Bowersox.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, it looks very nice.
Item 7 on the agenda is the council liaison report.
What's the report?
Come on. Item 8 on the agenda, staff report.
I think you all know that the DOT and the county held a meeting on the 415 corridor as well as the 141 corridor. But the most important to Polk City would be the 415 corridor. They were down to 2 alternatives. One was a roundabout at a price of $1.9 million, and the other was traffic lights at a price of $950,000. They took people's comments, and basically what that meeting was for was to receive comments. According to the documents that were handed out, people that were at the different stations that you could go around to, it was indicated that both of these dramatically reduce the backup and would increase traffic flow. I am not a big proponent for roundabouts, but the Evergreen, I don't know what the rest of the people were saying that were there, so I know that, I think you were going to go to that. That was probably before you got there. Because when I left, there was quite a backup.
Yeah. I was just discouraged because it was, best case scenario was 2 years. Do anything with all their studies, and I think that should have been started 3 years ago with the traffic's going through there, so we'll see.
I also went over there and, there was a lot of discussion on the one for come around the curve, and some issues they have with some intersections. I'm not sure what on our issue across the bridge, right? The roundabout they showed was like one laner, I think. And I think to make effect, you know, 2, 4 lanes around, whatever. If they're gonna. So.
We shall see.
I don't know how important our input would be to that. I mean,
Not very would be my
yeah.
response.
The other thing at the last MPO meeting I was at, they were looking towards the extended plans, and I don't know if there's any way that we have any way to input into stuff that's not within our jurisdiction, but the exits over on I-35 and getting those corridors coming this way, I don't know if there's something that we put, even though it requires coordination and collaboration with the county and Ankeny and so on. There's a way to get some of those ideas out there. Because they're looking out at 2025, and they're looking out quite a ways.
So there's a lot.
Because that really plays importantly to what we're doing up there on Hug and getting this going over there. So
we follow the rules of the plan. You'd like to hope that everybody else does as well.
yeah,
Now, I do know, and Gary can speak to this a little bit more, there's a lot in flux with the MPO, so they're changing their board of
they're
governors.
changing the structure
Yeah.
and
Which-
membership. So number of
Right,
representatives.
and our one representative stays the same while the overall decreases, and there's
Right.
pseudo contentious fight between West Des Moines in particular, Ankeny and Des Moines on how that changes, but our voice in effect raises because we go from 1 and out of 43 to 1 and 26, right?
Something like
Yes.
that, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So to your original
Yeah.
point, we're still 1 out of whatever the number is, but and I think that's a perfect example of the conversations we had with you on Whitetail Ridge and getting that changed. I would be unfortunate if that didn't follow through all the way across the top of Polk Drive. So
That's all I have.
Okay, anything else on, for Gary, were you done with staff as well?
I know that we'll have a couple things already for the next meeting, survey, and an amended site plan. I know that we have 2 in the hopper and
Okay.
possibly,
Okay.
so don't plan for November to have an extended winter vacation.
No worries. And commission report.
Got some good comments on the signal for the trail crossing over there, so. Looks good, works, being used when I came through.
Good to hear. So, number 10 on the agenda is adjournment, so entertain a motion to adjourn. And all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, and we are adjourned. You're the last one. We still have the 609 from 2 months ago.
No, I
If you guys don't need them,
That's gonna be tough.
didn't grab them.
Put your maintenance on
I
it.
can't remember what we did with whoever was, would have been here.
Yeah, I am really frozen.
and talk about some of the updates.
Yeah.
Still got her to.
Yeah, that one.
I kept my fat
18.
shut.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Because I come out